What makes the case of Russell Williams fascinating yet terrifying is that for all of his bizarre fetish behaviour, he wasn't a psychopath. In fact, he's something more horrifying. Williams was a man of overwhelming sexual deviance combined with a lack of empathy for his victims, but he was able to control his urges in order to avoid detection. Psychopaths are usually easier for police to catch due to their lack of self-control and consistency. But because of his extensive training in the military, Williams was able to exercise judgment and discretion when necessary. In October of 2009, Russell Williams was a 46-year-old commander of the largest and highest functioning Air Force base in Canada. He had been described as an elite pilot over the course of his 23-year career. He had flown Queen Elizabeth, the Duke of Edinburgh, the Governor-General of Canada, the Prime Minister of Canada, and many other dignitaries in the Canadian Forces VIP aircraft. He seemed to be the perfect example of a military leader, but something sinister and deadly was lurking deep within him. In October of 2010, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of sexual assault and confinement, and 82 other counts of break and enter and theft. When that news came out, it made the headlines across Canada and around the world for months. A man that Canada had placed in a senior position of trust and authority turned out to have a dark, secret life as a deviant killer. As more evidence was revealed, the whole country was shocked, not only by the heinous crimes and the bizarre fetish behaviour, but that it was done by someone so highly respected in the military. Russell Williams began breaking into homes in Tweed, a town of 1,800 people, about 50 kilometres north of Belleville. The first victims were a family that lived just a few doors down from the cottage Williams owned with his wife on Cozy Cove Lane. The family was friendly with the Williams family, enough to have them over for dinner and to go fishing together on Stocko Lake. Williams would repay their friendship by breaking into their house 3 times. Williams then took a photo of himself lying naked on the bed, masturbating with underwear believed to have belonged to their neighbour's 12-year-old daughter. 14 of the photos he took that night showed him with his penis protruding from the stolen underwear. There were photos of him lying in beds, surrounded by the stuffed toys and panties of little girls, or of him wearing negligées and camisoles. Between September 2007 and November 2009, Williams would commit a total of 82 break-ins of 48 homes between Tweed and Ottawa. The majority of the break-ins were undetected and went unreported to police. By September, Williams told police that he needed more stimulation, more risk. Russell Williams committed his first murder on November 16, 2009, when he broke into the home of Corporal Marie-France Comu, a military flight attendant who worked at the same military base as Williams. He broke into her house, took some pictures of himself in her underwear, then left. He returned 8 days later, after hiding in her basement for half an hour. Williams attacked Comu with a flashlight, tied her up, covered her mouth with duct tape, took some photos, and dragged her up to the bedroom. He then set up a video camera and raped her repeatedly. She continued to struggle against him and begged him to leave and spare her life. He told her to shut up, put duct tape over her nose, and she suffocated to death. Williams then cleaned up and then drove to Ottawa for a meeting. The murder of the 38-year-old Comu must have temporarily satisfied something, because Williams didn't strike again for nearly 2 months. On January 27, 2010, he drove past the home of 27-year-old Jessica Lloyd, and she was working out on a treadmill. Again, he beat and bound her, put duct tape over her eyes, and set up the video and camera. He then raped her repeatedly for hours, pausing to take photos. At around 8 p.m, almost 20 hours after he first attacked her, he told her he would take her home. But as they were leaving, he struck her on the head and strangled her to death. He wrapped her body in a blanket and left it in the garage. Williams drove to the base that evening, flew the following day, and spent the rest of the weekend at his home in Ottawa with his wife. He returned to Tweed the following Tuesday and disposed of the body in a wooded area not far from his home sometime around midnight. The police identified distinctive tyre tracks left in the snow near Lloyd's home. They also found traces of boot marks from that location to Jessica's house. 1 week after her disappearance, the Ontario Provincial Police conducted an extensive canvassing of all motor vehicles using the highway near Lloyd's home looking for the unusual tyre treads. Williams was stopped and an officer noted that his tyre treads resembled those left near Lloyd's home. Unknown to Williams at the time, he was immediately placed under police surveillance. On February 7, 2010, Williams was asked to be present at the Ottawa Police Service headquarters. Even 10 years after the interrogation took place at the Ottawa Police headquarters, the Russell Williams interrogation video still packs a massive punch. It captures a vividly emotional and intellectual game of cat and mouse between a seasoned investigator and a powerful yet terrifying man who is slowly realising that his game is up, and there is no room for manoeuvre. But before we begin, if you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe. It would help the channel a lot, and I'd really appreciate it. And tell me the punishment you think he should get in the comment section below. Without further ado, let's start the interrogation video. Detective Jim Smith starts off the interview by making small talk to build rapport with Williams. Remember that idiom you probably heard as a child? You catch more flies with honey than vinegar. There is a reason why people have been saying this for generations, and this has become a common technique used by police to establish a higher level of trust with the suspect. Provoking the subject simply doesn't win them over to your side. Williams is not going to share his deepest and darkest secrets to someone who doesn't understand him or even like him.
You ever been interviewed by the police in a room like this before?
I have never been interviewed like this.
Oh, no? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
You'll come to notice that Russell smiled to the camera, thinking it's just going to be a quick, casual chat, and the police will continue to suspect his neighbour of the crime. He is also probably thinking that after the chat, he's going to go home and have dinner with his wife. Williams probably didn't know much about the soft-spoken man sitting opposite him. Detective Sergeant Jim Smith was a veteran in the OPP Behavioural Sciences Unit and an expert in criminal profiling and forensic psychiatry. Before the interview, he had already sat down with his team with a body of evidence and developed a profile of who Russell Williams is and what he's most likely to do when he's asked certain questions. It was all calculated and tactically planned way before he walked into the room.
Let's get this set up here.
I guess the closest interview by NIS for top secret clearance.
Oh, yeah? All right. Well, again, Russell, I appreciate you coming in. An investigation like this, I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate it's been big news, especially down Belleville way. And, you know, obviously our approach to cases like this is that we don't give up on somebody being alive until we get evidence that they're not. So because of that, we're treating Jessica's case as an emergent situation, obviously. Yeah. So we're fast forwarding things that we might normally take our time with, and that's why we're here on a Sunday afternoon. Sure. So again, I appreciate it. No we're going to do a pretty thorough interview today. Okay. And the reason for that is because the last thing we want is to be calling people back again and again and again. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over a number of things, and I'm going to explain what all those are to you. Okay. I'm a big coffee guy. I don't know if you're a coffee guy or not, but I didn't want to drink in front of you. So
no, I appreciate that.
All right, go ahead.
You'll notice here that Detective Jim continues to build rapport to establish trust by offering him a cup of coffee. They also probably found out how he takes his coffee, and there are several specific reasons why he does this. First, it removes any tension, makes the situation more comfortable, just like when you're sitting down with a friend sipping a cup of coffee for a casual chat. Second, caffeine will make a suspect more anxious, which will make him likely to talk. Third, a cup of coffee is an unexpected gift. That will make Williams feel like he owes something back. And fourth, police usually offer suspects coffee to protect them from claims later on that they were mistreating the subjects.
I could definitely, are they black?
Yeah, they're just black with sugar.
Definitely. I just started my gum, so I probably have it a little bit.
Started your what, sorry?
Gum. Just
okay.
first piece of gum.
Well, there's napkins there if you want to toss it or whatever.
I appreciate that.
All right, and again, like I said, this interview is going to be very thorough. But again, I have a simple rule when I talk to people. It's I'm sure you're the same way. I treat everybody with respect. I don't want to ask you to do the same for me.
The detective then asks Williams, treat him with respect.
You'll notice that he didn't ask Williams to be truthful, but respectful, because that would have come across as being accusatory if Williams was being called a liar even before the questioning begins. This is a common technique that allows the police to later confront the suspect that he's breaking his promise when he does actually lie. It will later make Williams feel like a disgraceful person for breaking his promise to the nice man who offered him a cup of coffee.
So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going through what your rights are, okay? Just like everybody else, okay? Have you ever been read your rights before?
No.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it on TV a whole bunch of times, but that's usually the American version, so I'll go over with you briefly, okay? Basically in Canada, as you know, I'm sure, is we all have our rights guaranteed under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, okay? Now, Russell, just to avoid any confusion, because people do get confused when they're talked to by the police, is that you're obviously not under arrest here today, okay? Anytime you feel you want to leave here, you feel free to do so. The door's not locked. Teresa will walk you down the lobby anytime you want, okay?
In every interrogation, it is required for the detective to tell the suspect of his rights, which means that he actually does not have to say anything. Detective Jim also added that Williams can just walk out freely out of the room if he wants to and have dinner with his wife. This was purposely done to further establish comfort and trust with Williams. However, if Williams were to leave the room, the detective could easily get a warrant for his arrest, and he'll be back in that seat the following day.
If there's anything that comes up in our interview today, Russell, that you feel you want to talk to a lawyer about, you just let me know, okay? And the reason for that is I want to explain to you exactly what's going on here, okay? Jessica Lloyd is one of 4 cases that we're currently investigating, okay? And essentially what's happened is over the past about 4 or 5 months, there have been 4 occurrences that, like I said, that we're looking into. 2 of those occurrences occurred in September of 2009, and very briefly, they were up in the Tweed area. They involved somebody entering 2 different women's houses in the evening hours and committing sexual acts. Okay. In November of 2009, a young lady by the name of Marie-France Como was found murdered in her home in Brighton. And we believe that there was a sexual component to that crime as well. And then most recently we have Jessica Lloyd's disappearance. Okay, so essentially when you're looking at those kind of crimes, we're looking at a number of different potential criminal charges. All right, we're looking at issues all the way from the most serious one, which is first-degree murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, break and enter with intent to commit sexual assault, forcible confinement. Okay. And so what I want to make sure you understand, and this is what we've been doing with everybody we've been talking to, is that clearly when we find out who's responsible for one or all of those crimes, they could be charged with one or all of those offenses, okay, whether it's you or whether it's anybody else, right? And that's why it's important that we make sure that people understand what they have to do and what they don't have to do when they're talking to us, okay? So as I said before, any point today you feel the need, you want to speak to a lawyer, you let me know, and we can take you to a room where you can do that in private, okay? Do you have your own lawyer?
I have a realty lawyer, but
no,
I don't have a lawyer.
All right. If at any point you want to make that call and you don't know who to call, we have a phone list of lawyers that are available to give you advice free of charge right over the phone. Okay. So again, if at any point today you want to take advantage of that, you just let me know. Is there any reason you want to call a lawyer now?
No.
Okay. A couple other fairly simple and straightforward things that you probably understand, but again, we go over them to make sure everybody's clear, is that you don't have to speak to me today, okay? And the reason for that is because the law considers me to be what we refer to as a person of authority, okay? Probably similar to what you may be considered to be on the base. And because of that, I can be compelled to appear before any judge in the country, basically, to account for what takes place here today between you and I, okay? And that's the reason why everything's recorded, because there can't be any more accurate record than that, right? So.
No, understood.
And the other thing I want to make sure you understand is that, you know, you mentioned a second ago about Ms. Como being one of your work associates. So I don't know what's happened since November on the military side of things. But what we want to make people clear on is that if you have been spoken to by any person in authority or any police officer about any of those cases, I don't want what they may have said to you to make you feel influenced or compelled to say anything to me today, okay? Whatever you might have felt influenced or compelled to say to them earlier,
Mhm.
you don't have to repeat it to me, and you don't have to say anything further. Okay?
Okay.
But obviously, what you do say, for the third time is being
Yeah.
recorded, right? So.
Understood. These first two attacks happened not that far from my place in Tweed. Well, the second one did.
Yeah.
We didn't even know the first one had happened, but I understand that was reasonably close as well. But the second one was very close.
Yeah.
So certainly at the time, the OPP did a door-to-door.
Yeah.
Within a couple of days, probably the same night. So I spoke with a couple of guys then.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm aware of that from looking at the different cases. And essentially, Russell, in a nutshell, that's what we wanted to talk to you about. Okay, those 4 cases are of concern to us, and you've kind of almost hit the nail on the head about some of our issues that kind of make us want to talk to Russell Williams. Okay, because essentially there's a connection between you and all 4 of those cases. Would you agree? Geographically,
And then I guess
or
I drive past. Yes, I would
Yeah.
have to say there's a connection. Yeah.
Russell went on to proactively talk about the case, and Jim quickly took the opportunity and tried to blame Russell that he had a connection with the 4 cases mentioned. A completely normal and innocent person would have been offended and furious to be accused of having such a connection, but he was not offended because he actually did these crimes.
I'll be quite frank with you. That's why things kind of evolved when the officers talked to you on Thursday night.
Okay.
We kind of went from there because when I think you discussed with them the fact that you were a colonel
Yeah.
at the base.
I was in uniform at the time, so.
Yeah, so pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, then the connection with Miss Como
Yeah.
was made, and I believe you're a door or 2 down from one of those 2 incidents
I think
in Tweed.
3 doors down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very close. Absolutely.
Okay. Do you remember what time you left the base that night?
I don't remember anything peculiar, so I would say I don't know, probably 7 to 9, somewhere in that range.
Okay. That's when you left.
Left the base. Yeah.
And what
It
was
was a 45-minute transit. So.
45 minutes home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to walk you through November, but I'm going to take you to a date that's probably pretty fresh in your mind, the day that Marie-France Como.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you found out?
I do. Yeah, I was sent an email. Well, as soon as the ops staff and the base learned, they told me.
Okay.
So I got an email. I can't remember if it was late at night, early in the morning. It was certainly. I saw it. I want to say first thing in the morning because I had just come back from Ottawa. I was in Ottawa for a set of meetings on one of the days. I can't remember what day of the week we're talking about, but yeah, no, I mean, obviously when your people gets killed, it gets your attention. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I very much remember that coming in.
Corporal Marie-France Como was a military flight attendant, a lower level in the military rankings, while Russell Williams is a colonel much higher in the rankings. Her gruesome death was already made public, and everyone at the base was aware of it. Russell even wrote a letter of condolences to his family, but did not attend the funeral. When he was asked questions about Marie-France, he downplayed her death, and it became the first major red flag to Detective Jim.
And how did you know Marie-France Como?
I'd only met her once. She was on a crew I was on just after I got to the base.
Okay.
So I can't even remember. I think it was a one-day trip. I did a number of trips in Canada transporting our troops, sort of first leg out of Edmonton. We tend to hopscotch them across until they get into theater. So anyway, I can't remember which trip it was, but we did a number of them out to Edmonton just to pick up the troops, bring them to Trenton, and then put a fresh crew on, and because we'd fly out and back in the same day, so pushing the edge of that, and fresh crew on, and then continue on after a couple hour delay.
Okay. Do you know roughly when that happened?
That we were on the same crew?
The time you met her, the one time there, yeah?
It was soon after I got to the base, so I don't remember exactly, but I would say in the first couple of months, so August, September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you got that email notifying you that something had happened.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of a clear recollection as to how your schedule was going that week?
Well, I can't remember what day that the message came in. Just a second. I think quite a bit after her body had been discovered.
Okay.
So I think what happened. Sorry, just a second. Okay. So I think, if I remember correctly, the MPs learned late that evening. Can't remember when, obviously, her body was discovered. It was probably in the news reports. But so they learned, and then they passed it to ops. So they immediately passed it to me.
Okay.
The MPs work for the wing operations officer, so they go, through their chain of command, and then as soon as the duty to watch officer had that information, she advised me.
Okay. So again, that
along
particular
with,
week.
along with some others.
Right. I'm sure it spread like wildfire.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that particular week, do you have any recollection? Well, for instance, when you got the email,
Yeah.
do you remember where you were?
I was at home in Tweed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember if that was a week that you were reasonably stable in Trenton, or had you flown?
No,
over?
I had been in Ottawa. I had been in Ottawa earlier in the week for some meetings over in Gatineau for one of the, it's actually for the C-17 acquisition. I was project director when I was here in Ottawa for that, so just some follow-up stuff for that.
Okay. So if we were to do a similar investigation in your background, is there anything you can think of that anybody may have misinterpreted, or anything in your history that somebody might say Russell Williams
Absolutely.
did this?
No.
Okay.
Be very boring.
What's that?
It'll be very boring.
All right, because essentially that's what I'm looking at. Is it? You seem like a very intelligent person, and I think you can see how a surprise like that would certainly set off
Absolutely.
some alarm bells in our
There's
investigation, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the next thing we need to cover off is, I'll just ask you this straight out. Given the types of crimes we're investigating, do you get much chance to watch television shows, CSI, things like that?
I do watch, I prefer Law and Order, but I do watch CSI occasionally, yes.
Okay. So you have an idea of, obviously, the forensic capabilities, things like that are out there. What would you be willing to give me today to help me move past you in this investigation?
What do you need?
Well, would you be willing to supply things like fingerprints, blood samples,
Sure.
things like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Footwear impressions?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You'll notice that Detective Jim asked for footwear impressions last. This was purposely done so after he got the first two yeses out of Russell, he's more likely to get a yes out of the third one, which was the most important one. A brilliant tactic by the detective. What Williams didn't know is that the police already had his footprints in the snow at one of his victims' houses, and they were hoping that he was stupid enough to wear the same boots he wore to commit the crime to the police station.
I think that's what we're gonna ask you to do.
Okay.
All right. Now we have a process we have to go through to do that.
Okay.
And for the blood sample, I don't take the blood sample. We have specially trained officers that are trained to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to step out and make sure they're still available.
Can I assume you're going to be discreet?
It's possible. Yeah.
Because, this would have a very significant impact on the base if they thought you thought I did this.
Well, bottom line, Russell, that's one of the reasons we're here on a Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
The military certainly be of great assistance to us, especially in relation to Miss Como's investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's certainly one of the things that went into our decision to give you a call at home today and see if we could deal with this today.
Okay.
So, okay.
Because it's tough to undo the rumor mill once it gets started. But I appreciate that.
Okay. Now that you've had some time to, I know we've been throwing a lot of things at you here, but now you've had some time to think about things. Is there anything that you're concerned about that buccal swab matching in any of those four residences? Is there, I guess, let me explain what I'm getting at here, Russell, okay? This is a significant investigation, as you can
Yeah, absolutely.
well imagine. that DNA is going to be significant in our investigation, both quite possibly to help you, quite possibly to help us.
Understood.
I don't know yet. I don't know what the result is yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go back to the example I gave you because it's a very similar issue, I think. And you talked about the idea of discretion here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the idea that I think hopefully you appreciate the fact of how we approached you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And essentially, we have no issues with that. Okay. We talked recently about the whole idea of any unusual sex acts in your history.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing that can often happen in cases like this is that people become concerned about things like extramarital affairs, indiscretions along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any contact that you may have had with any of those 4 women that you may not want your wife to be aware of? Anything like that that we should know about to try and explain why, if your DNA is found, it would help us understand why it may be there?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
After 2.5 hours spent sitting across the same table, Smith found the Colonel's weak spot, the gold wedding ring on his finger. At this point, Williams is nodding his head up and down when Jim is throwing out all these ridiculous facts at him about extramarital affairs. We can all see that Russell gave away a massive nervous body language, and for the first time, he looks insulted. He took a deep breath, shifted in his chair, then denied the allegation by recrossing his arms.
Can you think of any reason why we would find your DNA in any of those residences? Let's focus on, well, for instance, I believe, let me just check the name there, make sure I've got the right address. I'm talking about the house that was just a couple of doors down from you there in Tweed.
A couple of doors down was Lori. I don't know her last name. I don't know.
Mazzacati?
I don't even know what her last name is, but there's the woman down the road, 3 doors down. Her name is Lori. I don't know her last name.
All right, let me just make sure we're on the same page here. My understanding is she lived at 76 Cozy Cove. Yeah, so she would be the second one, the second incident on your road there.
Yeah.
A couple of doors down. Ever been in her house?
No. We met her once, I think the first summer we were there, so in 04.
Okay. And that's what I'm getting at. Again, this is a credibility issue, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to come and see you 2 weeks from now and say, Russ, our CSI people went in that house. And are you familiar with how DNA works?
I think broadly, yes, I would guess so.
One of the challenges we have in 2010 with DNA is it's become so precise that I guess the best way to explain it is I can think back 15 years ago when I started in violent crime investigation.
Yeah.
For us to get a DNA match, the sample we had to find was, probably would have filled half of one of these cups. Because they destroy so much of the sample in the testing.
Okay.
Essentially, DNA has become more and more precise to the point where when you and I walked in this room earlier today, we could have sat down, talked for 30 seconds, walked out. CSI officer could have come in 3-4 days from now, did some swabs here, and he would have found your DNA and my DNA, and probably a lot of other people's DNA.
Sure.
A little bit gross to think about, but essentially, as we talk, a little bit aspirate comes out of our mouth that contains our DNA, our bloods, or our skin cells contain our DNA, and that's what I'm getting at. If you were ever in Lori's residence, quite possibly, quite innocently, your DNA could be in that residence. Has there ever been a time you've been in there?
No.
Okay.
Detective Smith is informing Williams that DNA testing doesn't require a blood spatter anymore. Previously, a blood stain, for example, would have to be at least the size of a dime or quarter to elicit enough DNA for a profile. Today, investigators can often retrieve DNA from minute numbers of skin cells, hair, or fingerprints left behind by a criminal. Williams is realizing now that he's beginning to get caught. The police already have his DNA sample, and they will eventually find his DNA in every one of the victims' houses he claimed he was never in.
What about the other lady down the road on?
I hadn't even heard that name, so no, I don't actually know who that was.
Okay. Okay. Have you ever visited Marie-France Como at her residence?
No.
Okay. All right. So you're quite positive there would be no reason why your DNA would be in any of those
Absolutely.
3 locations. Okay. Did you know Jessica Lloyd even in passing for any reason?
No, I didn't hear her name till it was on the news.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking that is because I know you were asked that question on Thursday night, and sometimes what we find, and again, this is one of those situations that can sometimes cause us to get in a lengthy investigation as somebody that maybe doesn't deserve it. But what can happen sometimes is somebody gets stopped by the police like you did, and they get asked that question, and people, when they're stopped by the police, they can be nervous, okay? So they blurt out an answer, and then they start driving away, and they go, oh, why'd I do that? Because the problem is that once they get asked again, then they feel compelled to maintain that answer for fear that if they change their answer, somebody could find it. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. So I want to make sure that's not happening here. I don't care what you said to the officers on Thursday night last week. If there's any communication or contact between you and Jessica Lloyd, you've seen her picture, right, around town?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Ever seen her before?
I don't. No, I would say I have not.
Okay. All right. All right. What kind of tires do you have on your Pathfinder?
I think they're Toyo.
Okay. Do you know the brand name, or sorry, the
I think that
make?
is I don't know. Sorry, the make is Toyo.
Yeah.
I don't know the model.
Okay. Just see, I'll read this off to you, see if it rings a bell. Ever heard of, does Toyo Open Country HTS
That sounds
make any
right.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay. When did you have those tires put on your Pathfinder?
Well, it's the second version we've had of them, so I think it might have been this past fall. They replaced other ones we'd had on the same.
Okay.
Well, Toyo, I can't say that they were exactly the same model, but our dealership here in Ottawa says they're very popular for the Pathfinders.
Okay.
And they were good. They lasted a long time.
All right.
And I, kissed my wife goodbye and headed back to Tweed to go to work the next day.
Okay. All right. The tires that you have on your truck, right? The reason I asked you about that is there any time? I mean, you recall where you were stopped by the officers there?
Yes.
Okay. Did they explain to you what the significance
Said
of
that was her
location?
house.
That was her house.
Yeah.
Okay. So you remember that location?
Yep.
Do you remember what the crossroad was, or?
I don't think there's a crossroad. It's sort of just on the south end of 37.
Okay. When you get stopped at that location, has there been a time in the recent 1 or 2 weeks that your vehicle has left that road for any reason whatsoever? Have you driven into a field with your vehicle at all? For any reason you can think of?
No.
Okay. Because I want you to rack your brain here. This is important. So,
Yeah.
is there anything you can remember doing that would have caused you to drive off the road
No.
at that section of roadway?
No, that's my that's the early part of the highway, and just head north. It's about 30 minutes from there to, probably 20 from there to my house.
Okay. Would it surprise you to know that when the CSI officers were looking around her property, that they identified a set of tire tracks to the north of her property? Looks as if the vehicle left the road and drove along the north tree line of Jessica Lloyd's property. Okay.
Okay.
They took, they examined those tire tracks, and they have contacts in the tire business. Obviously, tire tracks are a major source of evidence for us.
Sure.
Shortly after this investigation started, they identified those tires as the same tires on your Pathfinder.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. One of the other things that they do to try and identify the type of vehicle that may have left those tires, well, is they do two things. They talk to witnesses. Okay. there was a female police officer that actually drove by that location that evening and recalls seeing an SUV type vehicle in the field to the north of Jessica Lloyd's house, consistent with a Pathfinder.
Okay.
Could maybe consistent with other things, but consistent with a Pathfinder. And they, what they also do to try and identify the type of the vehicle is they look at what they call the wheelbase width, okay? Because different vehicles, different makes, models have wheelbase width. So they can take those two sets of tire tracks, measure the distance between them, okay, and determine what the width is, and then they can enter that into a vehicle database, and it will spit out the types of vehicles, okay? Your Pathfinder's wheelbase width is very, very close to the width of the tires that were left in that field, okay? Do you have any recollection at all of being off that road?
I was not off the road, no.
Okay.
When Detective Jim asked Williams if he remembered going off that road, a normal, innocent person would have been appalled by the attempted accusation. But he's got his arms folded, and he's nodding. His body language is showing, yes, I was there. And what he's saying is not convincing either. His heart is probably beating off his chest inside while thinking, what did I do? Where did I drive? He's trying to retrace his steps back, trying to be ahead of the investigator. But that does not seem to work. His entire body language is showing that he's in serious trouble.
All right. Russell, is there anything you can think of? Let's go talk about Marie-France Como for a minute, okay? Is there any reason at all you can think of that during our investigation, obviously we're searching computers, things like Blackberries, right? Electronic devices, looking through houses for things that are in handwriting, written notes, diaries, things like that. Now, I'm not at liberty to tell you what the content was, but is there any reason at all you can think of why Marie-France Como would have specifically referenced you in some of her writings?
Not at all.
No?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Is there anything that she ever said to you that led you to believe that there might be something more than a passing interest with her towards you?
Not at all. No, we spent, one flight together talking. I'd go back occasionally and talk. No, if that's the case, that's very surprising.
Okay. All right. You have any questions for me right now?
No.
Okay. I'm just going to step out and see how things are going, okay? I mean, it is a Sunday, but there's probably 60, 70 people working on this file, so there's a lot of things happening.
Sure.
So let me go out and see what's happening, and then I'll come back in and we'll hopefully continue, okay? I told you when I came in here that I'm going to treat you with respect, and I've asked you to do the same for me. We talked about the whole idea of how we've approached you here, okay? The trying to be as discreet as possible, okay? But the problem is, Russell, is every time I walk out of this room, there's another issue that comes up, okay?
One of the most fascinating parts of this interrogation is when Detective Jim Smith re-enters the room and makes the transition from good cop to bad cop. Smith executed this technique in a near-perfect manner. You'll notice that the detective entered the room and quickly states his disappointment while speaking to Russell, but not looking at him. But was he really disappointed in Russell? No. That was part of the plan. From the beginning, Jim was playing the nice good cop by treating Williams with respect and deference. But no suspect will confess to the good cop without ever experiencing bad cop.
And it's not issues that point away from you, it's issues that point at you, okay? And I want you to see what I mean, all right? This is the footwear impression of the person who approached the rear of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January, okay? All right? Now, I want you to keep in mind that this is slightly smaller, okay, in scale, okay?
Okay.
All right, that's not to scale. The footwear is actually bigger.
Okay.
If you look here on the ruler, you'll see that 1 inch is just slightly smaller than an actual inch, okay? But this is the way it prints off on the computer.
Yeah.
I'm going to move this over so you can see what I mean, all right? Because essentially, when you're dealing with footwear impressions, we have a gentleman on the OPP who's basically world-renowned. His name is John Norman. And essentially, with footwear impressions, you're in a situation where you're you're pretty much in the area of fingerprints, okay? And essentially, what we're talking about here is, especially when you start adding in other pieces of information that support an investigative position, okay? This is a photocopy of the boot that you took off your foot just a little while ago, okay? Now, I'm not an expert in footwear impressions, so I rely on the experts. Footwear impressions are very much like fingerprint comparisons, okay? You take a look at this print, and again, this is one print. This person walked through, there's several different prints to compare, so we're going to get features off of one print to compare, features off another print to compare. These are identical. Okay. Your vehicle drove up the side of Jessica Lloyd's house. Your boots walked to the back of Jessica Lloyd's house.
This is called positive confrontation, which is the first step of the Reed technique method of interrogation. It is when the police begin to present damning evidence to the suspect. You'll notice at this point Williams is nodding his head up and down, which is an involuntary reaction, and it is indicative of what's going on inside of him. It appears that he is shocked that the police have already got his boot prints and quickly realised how careless he was to wear the same boots to the police station. He then clammed up entirely, his body froze, and he went silent for minutes. Detective Jim, a seasoned interrogator, was smart to stay quiet and used that silence to build anxiety in Williams. It feels like there's a clock ticking in his mind, pressuring him to speak.
Okay, you want discretion. We need to have some honesty, okay? Because this is getting out of control really fast, Russell. Okay, really, really fast. This is getting beyond my control. All right, I came in here a few hours ago and I called you the way I called you today because I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt. But you and I both know you were at Jessica Lloyd's house, and I need to know why.
I don't know what to say. It's,
Well, you need to explain it, because this is the other problem we're having, Russell, okay? Again, these decisions are made by me. Right now, there's a search warrant being executed at your residence in Ottawa, okay? So your wife now knows what's going on. There's a search warrant being executed at your residence in Tweed, and your vehicle's been seized, okay? You and I both know they're going to find evidence that links you to these situations. Okay. You and I both know that the unknown offender, male DNA, on Marie France Comeau's body is going to be matched to you, quite possibly before the evening's over. Okay? This is a major investigation. The Center of Forensic Science is on call 24 hours a day helping us with this. Your opportunity to take some control here and to have some explanation that anybody is going to believe is quickly expiring. Okay? We're applying, the investigators now applying for a warrant to search your office. Right, these aren't decisions that we can say yes or no to. This is the practical steps in an investigation like this. And Russell, listen to me for a second, okay? When that evidence comes in, when that DNA match, when that phone rings and somebody knocks on this door, your credibility is gone, okay? Because this is how credibility works, all right? And I know you're an intelligent person and you probably don't need to hear this explanation, but I also know your mind's racing right now, okay? Because I've sat across a lot of people in your position over the years, okay?
Murderers usually feel alone and misunderstood after the crime, and what they want the most is to find someone to share about what they did. Detective Jim knows this, and he took advantage of it by saying that he's not alone, and he's someone that will understand Williams. This was a brilliant tactic by the detective.
The bottom line is that as soon as we get that piece of evidence that solidifies it, DNA, okay, as soon as the expert in footwear impressions, the expert in tire impressions calls and says, yes, I've examined those and they're a match, it's all over. Because as soon as that happens, where's your credibility? Where's your believability? You're just another, and again, don't take this wrong, okay? But you can see if you step outside this room in your mind and imagine how people are going to view you, okay? If the truth comes out after the clear evidence is presented to you, when you finally go, okay, I'm screwed now, what are we going to do? Russell, you know there's only one option. What other option is there?
What's the option?
Well, I don't think you want the cold-blooded psychopath option. I might be wrong. Okay, because don't get me wrong, I've met guys who actually kind of enjoyed the notoriety, got off on it, got off on having that label. Bernardo being one of them. I don't see that in you. If I saw that in you, I wouldn't be back in here talking to you, quite frankly.
You'll notice here that Williams gave a smile and a nod, indicating that he accepted the Detective Jim's compliment. But Detective Jim quickly pulled the compliment that Williams just smiled at, away from him.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you got me fooled. I don't know.
This is the pull and push technique of interrogation, where the push is the praise and the pull is taking back that praise in order to get him to chase after what he just lost. This was done to get Williams to try to get back what he just lost by confessing to his crimes.
This is over. And it can have a bad ending where Jessica's parents continue to wonder where her daughter's lying.
Detective Jim is now attempting to make it seem like Russell can go from being a villain to being a hero by helping the police to locate the body. But because psychopaths have a fragile self-identity and rely on other people's perception of them, feeling like the hero who led the police to the missing person is very appetizing to someone like Williams.
I mean, obviously, there's a huge search still underway, and it'll continue. It'll continue until her body's found. That might even happen tonight, for all I know. Once that happens, then I don't know what other cards you would have to play. What are we going to do?
Notice that there are now long periods of silence. Detective Jim used this to his advantage to continue to further build anxiousness in Williams.
Russell, what are we going to do?
Call me Russ, please.
Okay.
Williams is beginning to realize that he's now caught. In the second stage of the Reed interrogation technique, the goal is to make the suspect progressively more and more comfortable, while acknowledging the truth about what they've done. Williams remains in denial at first, unable to believe the situation he's found himself in, but as soon as he says, "Call me Russ," Smith knows he has broken through the Colonel's thick wall of silence.
Is Jessica somewhere we can find her easily? Like, is this something where I can make a call and tell somebody to go to a location and they're going to find her, or is this something where we have to go and...
In this past hour of the interrogation,
Smith is most urgently interested in finding the body of Jessica Lloyd as soon as possible. Once he has the location of her body, he sends out officers to find it. Then he moves on to talk to Williams about her murder and the other crimes he's suspected of. And just in case he stopped talking and requested to hire a lawyer, they at least have the missing person, which would naturally include the evidence to convict Williams.
Which direction are we heading in here? Russ, maybe this would help. Can you tell me what the issue is you're struggling with? What's the issue you're struggling with?
It's hard to believe this is happening.
Why is that? Why is it hard to believe?
It's just hard to believe.
Russ, is there anything you want from me? Is there anything you want me to explain? Is there something missing that you're struggling with that I can shed some light on for you?
I'm struggling with how upset my wife is right now.
Russ, what are you looking for?
I'm concerned that they're tearing apart my wife's brand new house.
So am I. But if nobody tells them what's there and what's not, they don't have any choice. Computers will be brought to Microsoft in California. They'll be picked apart. You can't erase things from computers. It doesn't happen. I'm sure you've seen that. I'm sure that's pretty common knowledge these days. It just doesn't happen. They sell programs that to try and help people clean their computers of stuff, and our guys are pulling that stuff out all the time. The FBI is pulling that stuff out all the time. This investigation will end up costing no less than $10 million. Easy. And they will say no to nothing. Any request this major case manager makes on this case, they've already been told it's approved. Don't even bother asking. So what am I doing, Russ? I put my best foot forward here for you, bud. I really have. I don't know what else to do to make you understand the impact of what's happening here.
I want to minimize the impact on my wife.
So do I.
So how do we do that?
Well, we start by telling the truth.
Okay.
Okay. So where is she?
Get a map.
After 4 hours and 40 minutes of quiet and intense intellectual combat, Russell Williams has now been broken. This is the turning point, and there's no turning back. Every detective watching this live feed was probably celebrating because they know they've caught him. Williams has now come to terms that he's now caught, and the awful reality that he'll spend the rest of his life in prison has now sunk in.
Is she close to where she lives? I've got maps of that general area. Which town is she near? Why don't we start there?
I'm not sure if you give me a map of that covers Calabar down to the highway and over to Tweed and south, I'll show you.
Let me see what I got here. I might have something. Is she inside, outside? Probably the biggest area I have there, Russ.
Yeah, you need more. You need a real map.
So where am I going on here to get to her?
In this block here.
Okay. So you're pointing to
a detailed map of that area, and I'll show you where she is.
Okay. Is she close to a road?
Yep.
All right. Is it something where is she buried, or is she somewhere where if you walk there you would fairly easily see her?
It's here.
Okay. So she's south of 7, east of Tweed,
Mm-hmm.
west of 41.
Mm-hmm.
And what's this road here?
Not sure.
Neither am I. Okay. I'll be right back, okay? Do you want any water or anything?
Sure.
Okay, I'll be right back. How long has she been there for?
A little over a week.
Was it fairly quick from the time she left?
Friday night.
Friday night?
Yep.
So where was she between Thursday night and Friday night?
In Tweed.
With you?
Yep.
How long was she alive for?
Almost 24 hours, not quite.
Okay. Russ? You're doing the right thing here. Okay.
This is a very important moment and an excellent strategy by Detective Jim when he offered a handshake to Williams. This was purposely done for 3 reasons. First, it shows trust and respect that they're going to go through everything that has happened. Second, it encourages Williams to want to speak openly to Jim about everything, and it would essentially seal the deal that he will confess tonight. And third, by saying that he's doing the right thing, he's also rewarding Williams so that he continues to speak truthfully, and in essence changing his negative identity from doing the wrong things for so long into a positive identity by doing what's right, by telling the truth.
I'll tell you where the membership cards are.
Where are they?
They're in the house there, but
In Ottawa?
yeah.
Whereabouts?
Some in the camera bag, which they would have found in my office.
Mm-hmm.
And when you walk into the office on the left side, there's a desk of drawers, set of
Okay.
drawers, like a filing cabinet, wooden, IKEA. In one of the top 2 drawers, and there's a plastic divider,
Yeah.
and there's inside there are 2 memory cards,
Okay.
which are blank, but I'm sure they can be
And whose images are on those cards?
well, I've erased them, but I expect you'll be able to draw images of Jessica and I.
What about Marie?
This was a slick move by Detective Jim, a deliberate question assuming Williams committed that murder too, even though he has not confessed to it yet. The detective wanted Williams to confirm all these while he was speaking honestly. Because when someone is speaking honestly and openly, it's difficult for them to suddenly lie.
There may be images on there as well.
And the 2 women from September?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have those images stored anywhere else?
Yeah, there are 2 hard drives in the house in Ottawa. I can draw you a little picture if you like.
Sure. Do you want to do that now while I'm
Sure.
getting them out? Okay. Want anything to eat or anything? Leave that with you. Okay.
But I do want to talk to you, Jim.
That's the plan. Okay.
Williams only wants to speak to Jim as he clearly feels respected and understood and even liked by Jim. He's not going to be honest and continue to reveal his deepest and darkest secrets if he suddenly feels that his interrogator hates or disrespects him.
Somebody running around looking for an actual map, but I did the same thing with the Google Maps. Just have to glue them up a little bit more. This is the biggest of the area. Well, this might have better parameters for you. There's Tweed.
.7 km from this intersection on the side of the road.
And what road is that? Kerry? South of, can't read that word. East Hungerford? Does that make sense? Oh, there it is there. Okay. How far off the road is she?
40 feet.
If she covered with anything?
She's wrapped up.
In
She's
what?
on the surface. Just a gray something or other cover.
Okay. Barry, the obvious question I'm going to have for you is, when they go there, and they'll be there shortly, they're going to find her?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll be right back. You look like you want to say something.
Just that this place, my wife, it's been a dream for the better part of a year, so I'm keen to get them what they need and so they can leave her alone.
Okay. Well, we're going to do our best to keep that as low-key as possible, okay? What do you want to talk about?
'Cause it's pretty wide open now, eh?
Yeah.
What do you want to know?
Well, do you want to work forwards or backwards?
Doesn't matter.
Why don't we start with Jessica?
I saw her in her house on her treadmill Wednesday night, I guess. And I noticed she wasn't there Thursday. So I got into the house, look around, then and then left. Noticed she'd come home, so I went back in through the back patio door while she was sleeping. So I woke her up. Didn't hit her. I only hit her once. Friday night. Well, so I raped her in her house.
A rape could mean a lot of different things. What kind of sexual act took place?
Vaginal and oral.
Oral. Who was performing the oral sex?
No, me on her and her on me.
Okay. Any condoms used or anything like that?
No.
No.
And then I took her to the car and took her to Tweed. Spent the day in Tweed. And I had told her earlier that before I let her go, I wanted to take some pictures of her in her underwear and have sex with her. So after she'd had a rest for an hour or so, I had her put on a number of different outfits she had. Put on a number, pairs. Panties, bra that she had. That I'd taken from the house. So she put those on and I took pictures.
Are you in any of these pictures?
Yep. So there was a video of the almost 4 hours, I guess.
So Jessica poses for these pictures, and there's videos, and then what happens?
After Russell Williams began confessing, he became very calm and had almost a matter-of-fact way of describing his crimes, just like how he would have to get up and tell people who have just died under his command, where he would have to write a letter to all the families while keeping his emotions at bay. That was something he learned to do quite well.
Then I got her dressed because she thought she was leaving. And then as we were walking out, I struck her on the back of the head.
Well, what did the hit on the back of the head do?
Well, I was surprised that her skull gave way. She was there and immediately unconscious. And I strangled her.
Okay. What did you hit her with?
Flashlight.
Okay. In the house or outside the house?
In the house. In the main portion, just in front of the fireplace.
What do you mean, they'll find signs of it?
Oh, there's quite a bit of blood. I'd expected to knock her out, but obviously generated a lot of blood.
What did she bleed onto?
The floor. It's just tile floor.
Okay. Did you clean it up, or did you?
I wiped it up.
So when that happened, did she have clothes on, or was she naked?
Yeah,
or?
she was dressed.
Okay. So when we find her, is she going to have those clothes on too?
Yeah.
Can you tell me why you killed her? Right. Do you know why you killed her?
Well, I think I killed her because I knew that her story would be recognized.
Her story would be recognized? How do you mean?
Well, because she knew I was taking pictures.
Although Williams's responses are shocking and Smith is clearly disturbed by them, he continued to remain composed, understanding, patient and non-demeaning.
Marie-France Como.
There was an open window in the basement of her house when she was away. I went in there a couple of nights before she came home. I went back in there late at night when she was at home. She was on the phone in her bedroom. She actually discovered me in the basement. She was trying to get her cat to come upstairs, and the cat was in the basement, had seen me and was fixated on me in the corner. She couldn't get the cat up, so she came downstairs to try and get the cat, and I'm not sure why she came over to me. I guess the cat was staring at me, and she was wondering what the cat was staring at. So when she spotted me, I had the same flashlight. I subdued her, tied her up, brought her upstairs, strangled her, well, more suffocated her. Some tape.
How did you subdue her? And when you say subdued her in the basement, what did you do?
Well, I had the same flashlight. She saw me right away, so it was just I hit her a couple of times and around her head, try and knock her out. Didn't, but she was bleeding a little bit. Eventually, after a struggle, subdued her.
Did she recognize you?
No, I had stuff on my face.
So then you go upstairs, and you said she suffocated?
Well, I suffocated her. I put tape on her. I put tape on her mouth, and then I put tape on her nose and held it there so she couldn't breathe.
Did she ever recognize you through this whole episode?
No.
What did you say you had on your face?
I had just a cover for my head, just a sports pullover type, like just a little cap kind of thing.
Okay.
Just a headband over my nose and mouth.
Did you take anything out of Marie-France's house or Jessica Lloyd's house?
Yeah, some of their underwear.
Okay. How much underwear is in those boxes?
Probably 60 pieces or so total.
So you took 60 pieces from between the two of them?
Yeah.
Does any of the underwear in those boxes belong to anyone other than Marie-France or Jessica?
Yeah, there's some from each of the other two women.
Okay.
So the first one,
Mm-hmm.
I just spotted her. Got into the house while she was asleep. Noticed that she was alone. Just hit her with my hand while she was sleeping. Subdued her. Mostly just my weight on top of her. Had her take off her pajamas. Took some pictures. Took some of her underwear and left.
And the other woman?
Same kind of deal. Went in through the back of the house. She was sleeping in her, not in her bedroom, but in her, in front of the TV. Very much the same story.
With Laurie Massacai, one that's at 76 Cozy Cove. How did you decide on her?
I knew she lived alone.
How did you know that?
She lived 3 doors down, and didn't know her, but I knew she was pretty lone. She had a boyfriend and hadn't been around. Looked in the window and she was alone. She was asleep in front of the TV. We have been through this, eh?
I know.
I struck her with the flashlight, thinking it would knock her out. It didn't. We struggled. I subdued her. Took some pictures. Left. It's probably in the house about 2.5 hours.
What did you do with, you said you took pictures of her. Clothed, unclothed?
Both. Clothed initially and then unclothed.
Detective Jim Smith searched for Williams's motivation, and it appears that he did not have any feelings at all to the women he raped and murdered. Williams said that he killed Jessica because he worried that her case would be tied to the 2 cases in Tweed. And for Marie Comeau, he killed her too because she was stationed at the same base in CFB Trenton. For Marie France Comeau, when she took her last breath, it was recorded on video. And for Jessica Lloyd, Williams bought her cooperation by promising if she did what he said, she would get her freedom. But after humiliating and raping her and recording it on video, Williams murdered her too.
Let me ask you this. If this didn't come to the point it's at right now, if for whatever reason you didn't end up on our radar, so to speak, do you think it would have happened again?
I was hoping not, but I can't answer the question.
Why do you think these things happen?
Oh.
Have you spent much time thinking about that?
About why?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know the answers. And I'm pretty sure the answers don't matter.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you like or dislike these women?
I didn't know any of them. I had met Marie-France that one time in our airplane.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And as always, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. And also the notification bell if you want to get an early notification of my next video.
As Colonel Russell Williams pleaded guilty to 2 murders, 2 sexual assaults, and more than 80 break-ins, and many were described in detail. Along with each count came graphic photo evidence and a clear pattern to Williams' escalating crimes. You should be aware some of the facts are highly disturbing.
Peter, the evidence presented in court today painted a chilling portrait of a predator who escalated from break-and-enters to sexual assault to murder, giving the public its first real glimpse of Russell Williams' criminal mind. Hours before Russell Williams arrived, police were here.
No photo equipment.
So were the media, lining up to get inside to tell what would be a bizarre, twisted story. It's the most graphic insight into Williams' double life, and it started soon after Williams shuffled into the courtroom, shackled and pale. In a voice that was at times barely audible, Williams pled guilty to all 88 charges against him. Then, slumped in his chair, his eyes downcast, he listened expressionless, while the Crown exhaustively recounted the case against him. Lloyd's family is bracing for a devastating week.
Just hearing the stuff he did that doesn't even involve my sister makes me, just as a Canadian, angry.
Throughout the proceedings, there were audible gasps, sometimes moans from people in the courtroom as one photograph after another was displayed on two large monitors in the courtroom. Tomorrow, Peter promises to be even more disturbing as lawyers lay out the evidence and the details of the two murders.
You know, Joanna, he pled guilty. We know what the sentence is going to be. Why is the court going through all this? Why are we hearing the things we're hearing, seeing the things we're seeing in such detail?
It would seem on the surface to be an open and shut case, Peter, but lawyers and the Crown especially, and police too, wanted to lay out to the public the scope and the extent of their investigation, the sheer number of crimes, the horrific nature of the crimes, and especially to satiate the public's interest in such a public figure.